The NFL Combine, 2022 NFL Combine is finally here. The wait is over, you guys. We are on the final day of February, which means we're on the final day of waiting for the 2022 NFL Combine. And a position to look at the most here is quarterbacks, because for maybe the first time in a long time since, well, I guess the Baker Mayfield Sam Darnold situation a few years ago, since the first time in a long time, we really don't know who the first quarterback off the board is going to be. I mean, is that going to be Kenny Pickett? That's what people were saying for a long time. Well, Malik Willis just had a great tape go out. He had an excellent workout, and yeah, now his value just upped a little bit. Matt Corral, another very talented quarterback, might not be a day one starter, might not be ready now, but could also be the first quarterback off the board. And then you got other named Desmond Ritter, you got Carson Strong, Sam Howell. There are multiple quarterbacks around that really you don't know where these guys are going to go. So this combine is going to be really interesting. But a name I want to mention here, and this is because I've heard his name surface around a lot, is Vikings' second string quarterback, Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond was drafted in the third round out of the 2021 draft class by the Minnesota Vikings. Second pick in the third round out of Texas A&M after an incredible Texas A&M career. He finished first in passing yards in franchise history at Texas, first in passing touchdowns in their franchise history, and was also 3-0 in bowl games. So just an excellent career when you look at his Texas A&M performance. And then you ask yourself, well, were the Vikings able to get him in the third round? Why did the Vikings get Kellen Mond in the third round, a quarterback with as great of a track record as he has? And it's simply because of the draft class that the 2021 draft class had. And something a lot of people are saying here is, well, the 2021 draft class was stacked when it comes to quarterbacks. The top three players taken were all quarterbacks. And now you look at this upcoming draft. This upcoming quarterback draft class, I mean, does anybody look like they're going to be a Hall of Fame? Does anybody look like they're going to be the next franchise guy? I mean, one of these players are likely going to be, but when you look at quarterbacks drafted in the first round, in the second round, third round, a majority of them are busts. Even just quarterbacks drafted in the first round. I mean, how often does a quarterback drafted in the first round become the next franchise guy? Doesn't happen too often. It really doesn't. You look at many draft class, it does not happen very often. It is a gem, it is a swing, and a lot of the times it's a swing and a miss. And then you look at this draft class and you're saying to yourself, well, if Kellen Mond was drafted this year, Kellen Mond would have been the third, fourth, fifth quarterback taken. I mean, Kellen Mond came off of a tremendous, outstanding Texas A&M career. Great 4 years. I believe he was a starter 4 years and was taken by the Vikings in the third round. Not only was he taken by the Vikings in the third round, but he was the seventh quarterback taken in the 2021 draft class. And then you look at really his disadvantages here. Now, Kellen Mond coming into the draft class was no day one starter. He wasn't ready to be a win now guy. He's a quarterback who has to play under the right system because he's an undersized quarterback. I mean, is size that important when it comes to quarterbacks anymore? Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, like, it's not that important. Those are both Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer quarterbacks. But then his accuracy not there. His accuracy is not there. His arm strength is also an issue. So you look at it and it's really, he has to play under the right system. Kellen Mond has got to play under the right system. And yes, can Kellen Mond be a future starter in the NFL? Absolutely he can. He just has to play under the right system. And then you look at the Viking situation, and Kellen Mond is such a relief. He's such a great player to have on your team because, yes, from the limited time we saw him this last season, didn't look great. But that quarterback that we saw at Texas A&M is still in there somewhere. And here's the thing, Vikings fans. I want you guys to hear me loud and clear. Vikings getting rid of Kirk Cousins, whoever fills in for Kirk Cousins will not be as good as Kirk Cousins. I understand that. Whoever we fit, whether we start with Kellen Mond, which likely won't happen, or we trade away Kirk Cousins and get a quarterback in the trade. That's the most likely scenario. I mean, you trade with the Panthers, you get Sam Darnold. You trade with the Browns, you'll likely get Baker Mayfield. Even if you trade with the Colts, you'll get Carson Wentz likely in that trade. If you trade with the Broncos, you'll likely get Drew Lock. So in a lot of these trades, you're likely going to bring in a quarterback who's going to be worse than Kirk Cousins. But here's the thing, you guys. We might get a quarterback that's worse than Kirk Cousins, but our team is going to be better without Kirk Cousins. Because you pay a quarterback you trade Kirk Cousins, you save yourself $35 million where you can fill a lot of these massive holes. Let's not forget, this Vikings team might be solid with Kirk Cousins. We might be a top offense with Kirk Cousins. But at the end of the day, we're not a Super Bowl contending team right now because of how many holes we have on this team. You get that $35 million, you save yourself that much money, you can fill your cornerback need. You can fill your need at linebacker, defensive end. I mean, there are multiple needs on this Vikings team that right now we have to focus on, and this has to be the focus. So although we might not have as good of a quarterback as Kirk Cousins, our team is going to be better. The supporting cast is going to be better than if we had Kirk Cousins. Because if there's one thing I want to mention here, I understand where the Kirk lovers are coming from. I can see why you like the guy. He's a talented guy. But he has to play into the right system. He has to play under a great offensive line, great playmakers, which the Vikings don't have. We might have great playmakers, but we definitely cannot afford a great offensive line for Kirk Cousins to be behind. Offensive line is very important. Kirk Cousins needs a great offensive line and can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I'm going to say that he can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Now, you go back to the Kellen Mond situation, and right now, where the Vikings are sitting at, it's a great spot for Kellen Mond to be. Nobody should be more happy about the Kevin O'Connell signing than Kellen Mond. Nobody. Because if there's one thing the Vikings have been missing, is putting a quarterback in the right situation to succeed. And that's exactly what Kevin O'Connell is here to do. That's exactly what our offensive coordinator and offensive coaching staff is here to do, is to put these future quarterback, whoever is going to be the franchise guy, in the right system. Because right now, I mean, when you look at the whole situation as a whole, it doesn't look too great for this Vikings team. Because with the terrible cap situation that we put ourselves in and how many needs we have, it simply cannot happen that the Vikings fill all their needs unless they trade away Kirk Cousins and look to the future. It just cannot happen where the Vikings fill all these needs. It simply cannot happen. And that's why you look at who's going to be the next quarterback for the Vikings. Well, if we trade away Kirk Cousins, I've mentioned how we're likely going to get a quarterback back in the trade. Whether that's Sam Darnold, Carson Wentz, Drew Lock. I mean, one of these quarterbacks will likely be in the trade. If it doesn't happen, I mean, there's some free agent quarterbacks that you can use as transitional pieces, that you can use as guys who will transition into either Kellen Mond, transition into whoever you're going to be your next quarterback that you draft. These will be like Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know, the guys who are free agents every year. Teddy Bridgewater, Ryan Fitzpatrick are free agents every year and always get a starting job. Why? Because they're top 32 quarterbacks in the league, but they're injury-prone quarterbacks who are just kind of band-aids. They're kind of transitional quarterbacks, to say the least. But Teddy Bridgewater coming back to the team, I mean, who would not be a fan of that? That'd be awesome. Now, him starting he'll likely get injured because Teddy Bridgewater gets injured every year. And then you got Kellen Mond coming off the bench. See, I'm not a fan of the Vikings having Mond as their first choice for quarterback this next year. Not a fan. I don't like it at all. I think Kellen Mond's got to be our backup. And he can back up an injury-prone player. Say we make a trade with the Colts. We get Carson Wentz, fine. Okay, Carson Wentz's contract might be a little high, but at the end of the day, you have him as a transitional piece. Kellen Mond can step off the bench and hopefully fit into our system. So the problem with Kellen Mond, and this has been the problem with them at Texas A&M, and what we saw from him a little bit of time that he played in the NFL, both in preseason and when Kirk had COVID. When he came out there, his accuracy was not there. He throws short to mid-range passes, and a lot of them end up in the hands of the defenders. He threw an almost 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio this last year. Actually, less than 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio this last year, or in his career in Texas A&M. He's also an undersized guy. His completion percentage is just 59, which 59 completion percentage is not awful, but when you're throwing short to mid-range passes, not great. It's not great right there. His average pass per attempt is just 7.1 yards. So it doesn't look great when it comes to Kellen Mond. But at the end of the day, we know this guy is a freak of an athlete. He's a dual threat quarterback. When was the last time the Vikings have had a dual threat quarterback? This guy right here. This guy right here in the back. That's the last time the Vikings had a dual threat quarterback. Was the time when Madden was made. It was made on PlayStation 2. All right, it's been a long time since we've had a dual threat. That's Dante Culpepper, in case you were wondering. We haven't had a dual threat quarterback since Dante Culpepper. It's been such a long time waiting that the Vikings have a quarterback who's mobile, that the Vikings have a quarterback who can move outside the pocket. Because at the end of the day, you guys, I know we have a different coaching staff, but we are cursed when it comes to drafting and developing offensive line. We're cursed. We're completely cursed. The only good offensive line that we've drafted that's been worth the draft pick has been Brian O'Neill in the last decade, all right? We're cursed when it comes to offensive line, and if there's one thing I know from a lot of Kirk lovers, is that Kirk's got to play another great offensive line. And we simply cannot afford that with a $45 million cap hit. And that's why what I'm saying here, I don't want to continue to talk on this Kirk trade. What I'm focusing on here is the Kellen Mond's ceiling. What is Kellen Mond's ceiling in the NFL? He might lower the floor. This is what I heard someone say. He might lower the floor, but he raises the ceiling for the Vikings team, because he will be a decline from Kirk Cousins, at least in his first year starting. I don't see a case where Kellen Mond can have a better first year starting than Kirk Cousins would if he was our quarterback in 2022. However, I can 100% see the Vikings have a better team than if they had Kirk Cousins. As a backup quarterback, and you put him in the right situation to succeed, Kellen Mond, yes, he can be a future starter in the NFL. He might be at a huge decline from Kirk Cousins, but he raises the ceiling for this Vikings team.